Would it be better if I just disappeared before they found out who I really am? That thought clawed at James Whitaker's chest as he stood in the doorway of the trailer that had come to feel more like home than his lakefront mansion ever had. The ache in his ribs was sharper today, more urgent, more final, and yet it was nothing compared to the dread rising in his throat. Every moment he spent with Grace and the kids made the secret heavier. They saw him as a kind man with gentle eyes and a warm heart, not the billionaire with a terminal diagnosis who had orchestrated their lives behind the scenes. He had walked into their world a stranger with no purpose, and now he was afraid of losing everything, not because of death, but because of truth. His hands trembled. His heart beat like a countdown. What would they say when they learned that the man who laughed over dinner with them, who played dinosaur games, and told bedtime stories was the same man who built the very world around them, only to leave it all behind? If you stay with me just a little longer, you'll witness the moment everything unravels and something even more powerful takes its place. The truth is coming, and when it does, it will break your heart, then heal it in ways you won't expect. Would you like to have dinner with us? Those words came out of nowhere, piercing through the December wind like a lifeline thrown across a canyon. James Whitaker froze. He had just stepped out of Ridgeway Market, keys half fumbling in his gloved hand, a plastic bag of microwave dinners dangling from his wrist when he heard the soft voice. He turned slowly, expecting to see a stranger asking for change or directions. What he saw instead made him blink. She couldn't have been older than 12. Freckles dusted across her cheeks, her strawberry blonde hair frizzed by the static of her too-thin hoodie. Her sneakers were soaked with slush, the rubber peeling off at the toes. But what struck him most wasn't her clothes. It was her eyes. Wide, startlingly blue and filled with something he hadn't seen in a long time: kindness, without agenda. James swallowed, unsure how to respond. "I'm sorry, what did you say?" The girl shifted uncomfortably, then nodded toward the shadows by the grocery store entrance. There, half hidden behind a broken newspaper stand, a young woman stood huddled with a small boy in a tattered jacket. The woman looked up anxiously, tired green eyes, pale face, arms wrapped protectively around the child. "My mom," the girl said quietly. "She saw you eating alone yesterday at the diner. She didn't want to say anything, but we're having Christmas Eve dinner tomorrow. And, well, we thought maybe you'd like to come." James stared at her, heart thudding. Was this real? Was this some kind of setup? He hadn't been invited to anything out of pure generosity in decades. Meetings, galas, charity events, sure, but never something as ordinary and human as dinner. "I don't want to impose," he muttered. "You wouldn't be," she said quickly. "We don't have a lot, but my mom always makes too much food. And my brother Noah, he loves having guests. Sometimes, company is the best gift. Company is the best gift." The words echoed in his head as he glanced toward the small family. The mother gave a hesitant wave. She looked young, early 30s maybe, exhausted but dignified. Her coat had clearly seen better years. James's eyes lingered on the boy in her arms, no older than 7, rubbing his red nose with mittenless hands. James hadn't felt anything stir in his chest for a long time. Not since Ellie died. Not since the world turned cold even inside the walls of his multi-million-dollar mansion. "What time should I come?" he asked. The girl's face lit up like the Christmas lights flickering above the grocery store entrance. "Really, you'll come? I'd be honored." She scribbled an address on a crumpled receipt: Oak Ridge Trailer Park, Unit 16. "My name's Emily," she said, "and my mom's Grace. See you at 2 p.m. tomorrow." He nodded, unable to say much more, as she skipped back to her mother, beaming. The boy Noah looked up as she whispered something in his ear, and he waved shyly. James watched them for a long time before climbing into his car. He sat in the driver's seat, bag of groceries forgotten, his breath fogging up the windshield. Then something caught his eye, a small folded paper that had fallen from Emily's coat pocket and landed on the sidewalk. He opened the car door and stepped into the snow to pick it up. It was a homemade Christmas card. Inside, written in pencil, was a single sentence: "I hope this year Mom has someone to laugh with at dinner." James stared at the words until they blurred. His fingers trembled as he closed the card and held it to his chest. That night he sat in the middle of his silent lakefront mansion, the fire crackling in a room far too large for one person. He placed the card beside a dusty photo of Ellie and whispered, "I think I found something." Christmas morning in Willow Creek sparkled under a fresh blanket of snow. It was the kind of quiet beauty James once loved back when Christmas meant something. His stomach ached again, a sharp, burning pain he had learned to live with. But he ignored it. It wasn't the time. Today wasn't about him. He arrived at Oak Ridge a few minutes before 2 hours, dressed in a navy overcoat and scarf. In his hands was a grocery bag, canned cranberry sauce, a loaf of bakery bread, and a small toy truck he'd impulsively bought for the little boy. The trailer door opened before he could knock. Emily stood there in a red sweater, 3 sizes too big but stitched with love. "You came," she shouted back into the house. "Mom, he's here." "The man from the store." Grace appeared, wiping her hands on a towel. Her smile was cautious but kind. She looked stronger up close, worn down but not broken. Her eyes met his with a flicker of recognition. And something else. Relief. "Please come in, Mr. Whitaker." "James Whitaker," he said. "But just James is fine." The trailer was small but clean and filled with life. Handmade paper ornaments hung from the ceiling, and a tiny tree sparkled in the corner. The smell of roasting chicken filled the air. The little boy peeked out from behind the couch, holding a stuffed dinosaur with one missing eye. "Is he the one you told me about?" the boy asked Emily. "Yep. James, this is my brother Noah. And that's Rexy. He's a T-Rex." James knelt slowly, his body protesting every move, and looked the boy in the eye. "Nice to meet you, Noah. I love dinosaurs." Noah grinned. "Rexy's not scary. He's just lonely." That word hit James like a punch to the gut. Lonely. He sat down with them, letting the warmth of the tiny home wrap around him like a forgotten blanket. Grace served dinner, and they prayed before eating, something James hadn't done in decades. When it came time for Grace, she asked if he'd like to say a few words. He hesitated. Then, his voice low, he said, "Thank you for this meal and this family. Thank you for reminding me that kindness still exists. And thank you for this gift of belonging." Grace wiped a tear. Amen. As they ate, Emily talked about school. Noah asked questions about dinosaurs. James found himself laughing real laughter for the first time in years. Later, as he left, Emily pressed something into his hand, a red and white candy cane wrapped in tissue paper. "I saved this from school," she said. "I don't have a real gift, but I thought maybe you needed something sweet." James drove home that night with the candy cane in his pocket, the card still tucked in his coat. He stood in front of the fireplace and whispered to no one, "They have nothing, and they gave me everything." He didn't know yet what that meant, but he knew one thing for sure: tomorrow he would see them again. Because maybe, just maybe, hope was something you could borrow if someone was kind enough to lend it. And now I want to ask you something. If you were in James's place that Christmas Eve, would you have accepted the invitation? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like this video if the story touched your heart. Your support helps us keep telling stories that matter. The next day, James returned to Oak Ridge, though he told himself it was just to check on them. "Just a quick visit," he muttered under his breath as he pulled his Mercedes into the gravel driveway of Unit 16. But the truth was simpler. He hadn't stopped thinking about them since the moment he drove away. Emily and Noah were outside, bundled in mismatched layers, building a crooked snowman with a carrot nose and 2 shiny bottle caps for eyes. When they spotted him, Emily dropped her mittens and ran. "You came back," she cried. Noah's face lit up. "We saved the snowman's head for you." James stepped out of the car slowly. The ache in his side had sharpened overnight, deep, insistent, like something was clawing from within, but he forced a smile. "I wouldn't miss it." Grace appeared in the doorway, still in her diner uniform, her apron dusted with flour. She looked surprised, but there was warmth in her eyes. "James, we weren't expecting you again so soon." "I was in the neighborhood," he lied. Her look said she didn't believe him, but she didn't call him on it. That afternoon passed in small, beautiful moments, helping Noah find the right-sized twigs for arms, tasting Emily's hot cocoa, made with only water and a single marshmallow, but with more love than any drink James had ever had, and talking with Grace while she folded laundry. There was something easy about their presence. No need to impress, no judgment, just real. But that evening, as Grace tucked the kids into bed and the trailer grew quiet, James's thoughts took a darker turn. The pain in his abdomen hadn't eased. It was getting worse, spreading across his side like a storm front. He stood by the kitchen window watching snow fall under the trailer park's yellow porch lights. Grace approached quietly, handing him a cup of tea. "You're quiet tonight," she said softly. He hesitated. "Then Grace, do you ever feel like you're living someone else's life?" She tilted her head, confused. "I mean, like you've spent so long surviving, you've forgotten what it's like to want something more." Grace sat down at the table, folding her hands in front of her. "Every single day." James nodded slowly. "I wasn't always alone, you know. My wife, Ellie, she died 5 years ago. Heart attack. I was in another city closing a deal." Grace didn't respond immediately. Then gently, "I'm sorry." He stared into the tea. "After she passed, I thought, what's the point of connection? What's the point of opening your heart again if it only leaves you with pain?" "And now?" she asked. James looked toward the hallway where Emily's soft laughter echoed through the thin walls. "Now I'm not so sure." He left shortly after, the pain in his side blooming with each step to the car. By the time he got home, he could barely make it upstairs. That night he sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the darkened photo of Ellie on the wall. "I don't know what I'm doing, Ellie," he whispered, "but I can't stay away." The following week, his visits became routine. Homework helped snowball fight story time. Grace had stopped asking why he kept coming. The kids simply assumed he belonged. He began to laugh more, eat more, live more. But the lie, the one sitting just beneath the surface, grew heavier. Because James Whitaker wasn't just a lonely old man, as the children thought. He was the man who'd bought up half of Willow Creek, who owned the bank, the grocery store, and the diner Grace worked at, who had enough money to change their lives with a single phone call. And he was dying. One Wednesday evening, as James helped Grace carry groceries into the trailer, he noticed the bills stacked on the counter: unpaid electric, late rent notice, a final warning for her car loan. She caught him glancing. "It's nothing," she said quickly, stuffing them into a drawer. He didn't press, but inside something cracked. The next morning, James made a call to his longtime business manager. "Robert, I need to reopen the Willow Creek Community Center project. Sir, that project's been dormant for 5 years. I'm bringing it back. Full renovation. I want after-school programs, job training, family services, the works. Do you have someone in mind to run it?" "I do," James said quietly. The plan formed faster than he expected. By the end of the week, job listings were drafted, the budget approved, and Grace's name was at the top of a short list no one knew existed. James made sure she'd be interviewed fairly, but he also made sure the role was tailored to someone just like her. Single mother, resourceful, respected in the neighborhood, quiet leader. He knew it was a gamble. If she found out, would she feel manipulated, bought? And yet, what was the alternative? Let her lose everything again. That Friday, Grace called him in tears. She had lost both of her jobs, first the diner, then the cleaning shift. New management, downsizing, corporate talk that boiled down to, "We don't need you anymore." James could barely breathe through the pain in his side, but his voice was steady. "I may know someone hiring, someone who's opening something big right here in Willow Creek." She paused. "Why would they want me? 'Cause they'd be lucky to have you." He hung up and stared at his shaking hands. He was running out of time, and he still hadn't told them the truth. We'll continue the story in the next part. But before that, let me ask you something. If you were James, would you tell Grace the truth now? Or wait, knowing time is short? Let me know in the comments, and if this story touched you, please tap that heart and like the video to help others find it too. There's a moment when time slows, not in the way movies show it, but in a quiet, breathless way, where the world seems to pause just long enough for your heart to catch up with what's happening. It was a Thursday morning when James collapsed in Grace's kitchen. One moment he was helping Noah cut out paper dinosaurs for a school project. The next, his hands were trembling, the scissors slipping from his fingers. The pain he'd been hiding for weeks surged like fire across his ribs, and the room tilted violently. When he came to, he was on the floor, Grace's face hovering above him, pale with panic. Emily was holding Noah in the doorway, both of them frozen in fear. "I'm calling an ambulance," Grace said, reaching for her phone. "No," James croaked, barely able to breathe. "Please." "Not yet." "You're scaring them," she whispered. "You're scaring me." James struggled to sit up, forcing every word past the fire in his chest. "I have to tell you something. All of you." Grace helped him into a chair. Emily and Noah came closer, still silent. He looked at their faces so full of love, so full of trust, and knew there was no more time for secrets. "I'm sick," he said softly. "I have cancer. I've known since Christmas." Grace's breath caught. "I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to see me as someone to pity. I wanted to be part of something real before it was too late." Emily's lip trembled. How long James gave her the truth? A few weeks, maybe less. Noah, still too young to grasp the full weight of those words, began to cry. Grace pulled him into her arms, then looked at James with something unreadable in her eyes. "You knew this whole time, while you were helping us. While you were building a life with us," she said. He nodded slowly. "Yes. And there's more." He told them everything. That he was James Whitaker, the man who'd funded the community center. That the job offer had been designed for Grace not as a handout, but because he believed in her. That the trust fund for the kids, the prepaid house, the quiet bills he'd covered, had all come from his heart, not his bank account. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Grace stood, walked to the window, and wiped her face. "You thought we wouldn't love you if we knew who you really were," she said, voice cracking. "You thought the money would ruin what we had." "I didn't want to lose you," James whispered. She turned back to him, her eyes wet with tears but filled with something else now. Not anger, not even hurt. "You idiot," she said softly. "We never loved you because of what you had. We loved you because you showed up." Emily crossed the room first and wrapped her arms around him, pressing her face into his shoulder. "You're my family," she whispered. Then Noah, crawling into his lap, hugged him fiercely. "Don't go, Grandpa James." And for the first time in his life, James cried not from pain or regret, but from a kind of love he never thought he'd earn. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of soft moments and quiet joys. James moved into Oak Ridge, choosing love and laughter over hospital beds and sterile walls. Each morning began with pancakes and paper snowflakes. Each evening ended with bedtime stories and whispered prayers. Grace took a leave from her new job to care for him. Dr. Bell made house calls, managing James's pain and marveling at how peaceful the man had become. "You're not fighting this anymore," the doctor said during one visit. "I already won," James replied. "I just needed to find the right people to show me how." On the first day of spring, the community center officially opened. James, wrapped in a thick coat and scarf, watched from the back of the crowd as Grace cut the ribbon. She didn't mention his name. She didn't need to. The crowd cheered because they saw what she'd built, what she would continue to build. And James truly knew it would last long after he was gone. That evening back at the trailer, Grace gave him a small wrap box. Inside was a photo James with the kids playing board games on the living room floor, all of them mid-laughter. On the back, Emily had written, "You're not leaving us. You're just becoming a story we tell to remind ourselves how lucky we were." He placed it beside his bed that night, along with the candy cane Emily gave him months ago, his final treasures. And then, as the stars came out over Willow Creek, James Whitaker closed his eyes for the last time, with a smile on his lips and the warmth of a family around him that he never thought he deserved, but had been given anyway. Because sometimes the richest life isn't measured in dollars or years, but in the love you leave behind. Let me ask you something. What do you think was the most powerful moment in James's journey? And if you had only a few weeks left, who would you spend it with? Tell us in the comments. Now, I'd love to hear from you. What did you think of this story? Comment number 3 if it touched your heart, number 2 if it was just okay, and number 1 if it didn't quite work for you. Also, where are you watching from? Let us know below, and if this story moved you, please like, heart, and share it so others can feel it too.